Welcome to the BleedRedBlacks podcast.
Best fans in the league right here, baby!
With your hosts, Colin and Mike.
Susie Q.
Produced by Mark and Johnny Z. BleedRedBlacks starts now.
BleedRedBlacks.
Gabriel is open in the end zone. Touchdown! The Ottawa fans and players are going crazy.
Your number one podcast for all things Red Black.
It's complete on the near side. Sinopoli makes the tackle into the end zone. Touchdown! It's Brad Sinopoli.
Every season,
Back to pass throws. It's intercepted. And this is going to be a pick six into the end zone for a touchdown. It's Jarrell Gavins. Touchdown, Ottawa!
all season.
First and 10 Ottawa for the BC 30. Here's Burris throwing into the end zone. Ellingson, and it is caught! Oh, what a catch by Greg Ellingson!
Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the BleedRedBlacks podcast. I'm Colin. We're back with the OGs in South Keys. Season ticket holder Mike. Looking good, buddy.
I got my Steelers shirt on just for you.
Thanks.
Grinded out a win last night, and I'm 4-1, so I'm happy to be here.
Had a boy, and the one and only, back from his travels in Vancouver, producer Mark. What's up, buddy?
What's going on? Also 4-1, might I add?
Yeah, 4-1.
Although my Packers are 5-0. But
You were the last undefeated team in our fantasy league.
I know. I held it together for 4 weeks,
So
but
that's pretty amazing.
couldn't make it through the first bye week. I had to suffer.
It's gonna be snug. It's gonna be snug, and I think it's been a weird season already. So I don't know if I'm gonna. I mean, I could lose every game, or I might win every game. Who really knows?
It's good to have Mark back here because in my notes it says Mark. Talk about Mark in Vancouver, but I read that as Mark in a van. So let's just,
Van down by the river.
so let's get a little bit of a trip recap. I know I'm going down the notes a little quick, but
Well, it was a nice trip out. It was my first time out to visit my significant other's family in a couple years. So we got to see the entire extended Italian family and nice family wedding. Some nice outings out downtown Vancouver. Did a bit of shopping. Went to some grimy pubs and the usual stuff I do when I travel. Pretty much uneventful until my flight home, where on my nice 5.5-hour Air Canada direct flight from YVR to YOW. I had a very, very unfortunate event for the woman a couple rows behind me, but she had a bit of a number 2 accident in her seat. And let me tell you,
a bit of a number 2 accident.
well, I'd say it was a whole lot of number 2 accidents.
I think this is a finite. This is a 1 or a 0.
Yeah, this would have touched the sides if you were over top of a porcelain throne. But
there's no little when crapping oneself.
not
on
in a
plane.
pressurized tube at 30,000 feet over Regina of all places too. And I'm actually not kidding. I looked at the little map on the screen in front of me, and I'm like right over Regina. I'm like, go figure. And all I could think of was that stupid theme song, dun 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 dun, dun Regina. And I'm like, this is an experience I'll never forget. But luckily, I picked up a cold when I was out west, so I had one of those little Vicks inhaler things, the little nose shot things.
Yeah.
I just kind of stuck it up one nostril, just kind of breathed in. I'm like, oh, menthol, perfect.
Well, that must have been a while.
Oh, the guy beside me was dry heaving, like for the last 2 hours of the flight. Oh, it was bad.
Wow.
I've never experienced anything quite like it.
Do we have an over? That's okay. We don't know this story because we told you earlier to save it for the show, as what we often do. So Colin and I want to do an over/under of the possible age of the woman who crapped herself on the plane.
Sure. Well, I don't know if Mark checked her ID, but he can give me a ballpark. So I'm gonna say.
What do you want to set that over/under?
Well, we'll do a Chinese line, so under is all you can take.
That's all I can take.
So I'll start at 67.
Oh, actually, you know what?
Taking it?
I'll take 67.
All right. How old was this cat?
I'm putting her anywhere between mid-40s to mid-50s.
Damn.
Like, I think this was one of those, you think you're just going to let a quick one out and nobody's going to notice, but she just followed through, Well, you've had one of those, you go to Taco Bell or something like that late at night and, you're just like getting a little squeaker out on the couch and then next thing you know, it's just like, whoa, okay, that went too far.
Welcome back to the studio, Mark. Of all the things I was expecting to hear in the trip report, squeaking one out was not one of the topics. But anyways, okay, one more bet. What are the chances that Mark still ate the complimentary dinner post-deuce?
It's Air Canada. What dinner, bud?
guess that charcuterie plate for $8.95 wasn't looking so good after that.
Yeah, I think their sandwich sales went down dramatically after that incident.
Pita and hummus? Ah!
Oh, I'd be dry heaving. I'm dry heaving just thinking about that. My God, that's gross.
Oh man, that's pretty much amazing.
Well, that's right up there on my greatest airline stories of all time. One I wish I can forget, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Well,
So
it's going to be on the internet forever, so you'll never.
Well, you know
have
they
to-
say always bring gum onto a flight. Now my recommendation to everybody is get a Vicks Vapro inhaler because if something happens drastic on the flight, you want to not to smell anything.
and a can of Febreze.
Oh God!
I think of Febreze and so maybe a pack of diapers.
Like a box of dryer sheets.
Hey, it's amazing what smell you can cover up with a toilet paper roll and some dryer sheets, right? Anyways,
If I was that woman, I would never fly again. I'd just be that's it. It's over.
I honestly felt bad for her because that's got to be the most
yeah,
humiliating thing of all
yeah,
time.
yeah. That's that poor woman. Well, hopefully she was okay. Like, hopefully it was just
Yeah,
right. Like,
Yeah.
that's brutal.
And just goes to say, always try to go for the number 2 before you get on your flight at the airport.
Life lessons with
Yeah,
Mark.
precisely.
I think a new segment. We like that. Life lessons with Mark.
Little background music there.
We're due for like some new segments. So
We need some new segments. so
okay, maybe we can do like a Mark's top 10 or something.
there you go.
What grinds my gears?
Yeah.
You know when a woman craps on a plane.
Before they serve the meal. Timing, damn. Okay, so just out of respect for Mike, I just want to say Blue Jays awesome comeback.
Yep.
Big game Wednesday. Tough to watch. It's 4:00 p.m. Eastern, but yeah, you want to watch some good baseball. Just really quickly, we talk about this all the time, Mike, but playoff baseball is in a league of its own. It makes regular season baseball look like amateur.
Why do they play 162 games, right?
And well, I guess that you need. Yeah, it's just such a complicated game. Like,
Matt, you got to grind it out.
yeah, but wow, what a display we're seeing now, and these teams really are awesome. So hopefully Toronto come out with a win. As you know, I bet that they would get swept.
Yeah.
So I actually thought that I was going to have a quick, few bills, but anyways, I'm more happy to see them advance. Who needs money?
Who needs money, right?
I mean, good.
I really needed that money.
Okay, let's be honest. Can I borrow money off you guys? I was counting on them
I
getting
was trying to
swept.
double up on my rent.
So Deb Strickland has this idea for a cricket's drinking game for the podcast. I don't think, I know I say a lot of bad jokes, so that's cool. And Mark just calls me out on them, but maybe you should start calling me out on more bad jokes. That might take up quite a bit of time in production land. But.
Yeah, so super listener Deb Strickland believes that every time she hears cricket, she should take a drink like she's watching Rod Black on TSN.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
classic.
So, yeah.
It's great. It's great. We're officially a great CFL podcast when there's drinking games being developed behind our
I always
content.
just put the cricket backing track on the entire podcast and see how that goes for.
Hey,
Deb's
listen.
hardcore, whatever. Our podcasts are only 60 minutes long.
Yeah.
Right, I'm sure she's done a Century Club like last weekend.
Yeah, it's good background music. It's right to help you fall asleep. I mean, this podcast helps me fall asleep some nights.
There you go. Mark didn't have the interwebs in Vancouver, so he didn't hear the last one. But Johnny Z did an awesome job filling in for you.
Happy birthday, John.
Happy 2-3, Johnny. Yeah, your big MJ birthday. So it's I'm trying to remember 23. Can't say I recall. Be honest.
Yeah, that was 10 years ago for me.
Yeah. So.
But if I could remember my 23rd birthday, I'd probably say it was an epic good time. So.
You've come a long way.
Saw you at the well, bud.
I think you still owe him $10 for that. Yeah, you guys were trying to swap stamps to get in for half price.
Come on, man. What you're not gonna drop some dub and bass tonight, man? Come on, man. All right.
So this weekend, I know Mike, you did as well, and we went down and took advantage of the advanced polls that we had. I went to City Hall. I don't know where your local was, but
The Plant Bath,
okay,
which is amazing, right on the corner of Somerset and Preston. Nobody in line. Walked in, walked out. Perfect.
See, I had a little queue at City Hall, and I liked that. And, we had to wait about 15 minutes, but it was a really positive vibe in there. And I think from early results, apparently the advanced polls are up 90% participation since 2008. So take those numbers with a grain of salt, but hopefully that correlates right across the whole board. And hopefully people realize that voting it's imperative.
People are
everyone
voting
gets out
with
and does it. So.
people are voting with emotion. That's usually a sign they told us, and what we used to do. And
Yeah.
on that side of the fence was
Yeah.
when you see early advance polls, high numbers, it's people are voting with emotion. So we'll see what happens. They're either voting somebody out, or they're voting to keep somebody in.
As long as they're voting.
As long as they're voting.
You know, there were some parties there that like I had a good chuckle. There were a few of them, like a few of the radicals
In our
and
neighborhood,
stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
And there was like it was like a full scaff sheet. She's like, I'm like, where's the parties I'd normally vote for? You know, she's like, oh, just turn the page. You know, it was like
Top 4 is on the back.
you know, the radical Rito Canal party. You know,
Rhinoceros party.
They were there for sure. Yeah,
They've actually quite the nice platform if you've actually read it. It's
they've been around since like the mid '70s, I think, too, haven't they?
Very comprehensive. You know,
Yeah.
paving Manitoba to make the world's largest parking lot. You know, banning pot, pans, and other kitchen utensils.
Well, there's one canon that doesn't want to ban pot, so we'll get on to that later.
Yeah, his name's not Stefan, that's for sure.
Nice hair though, eh?
Nice hair, though, You know, it's funny. You guys have made reference to that joke so many times. I didn't know what you were talking about, but I just laugh. Like, I'm just like, whatever, sounds funny. And because I don't watch commercials, right? So the other day I was watching it and I heard it and it was like that light bulb turned on. You know? I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, there actually was some kind of substance to this joke as opposed to just. I thought you were talking about like wing.
Well, I think
I didn't understand. You know,
it'll go down in Canadian history as one of the. It will go down as one of the most interesting ads run by a political party for sure, because it's.
Well, straight up mocking the
It's
other
making
ones,
up.
yeah.
It's mocking, and that hasn't been done before in Canadian politics a lot of the time. And
I don't know if it's a good first or if it's a, but it's a first. That's for sure.
I mean, it's not a blatant. Okay, it may be an attack ad, but at least it's funny. So.
Well, yeah.
because in a good Canadian sense, it's actually saying he's not ready now, but he may be ready later. So we're sorry he's not ready.
Yeah.
And he's got nice hair though. Nicer hair than his father. We'll just leave it at that.
More hair than
You
this.
kidding
father.
me? Jean Poutin's coif was nuts. So speaking of nuts, my Thanksgiving was pretty nuts. That segue cricket. Deb, get out your box of wine. Yeah, Thanksgiving was this past weekend. Awesome time, Mark. I know you got to spend some time with the family. I actually hosted, which was nice, having everyone over to my place. And we had an early dinner to make sure that we were all done and in front of the tube by 1 o'clock to watch the Bengals. Crazy come from behind victory against Seattle. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. But 5-0, baby. It's pretty amazing.
I had a interesting run down to my hometown on the Friday night. I came in a little bit on tilt because I was up on northern Quebec on a work trip, flew back Thursday or Friday afternoon, and then left right away.
Heard it was a pretty shitty flight.
Well, no, that was the flight back to Vancouver. The one to Rouyn-Noranda was pretty uneventful, to be quite honest, other than the fact I almost missed both of them. But so I get in my car.
Would you miss them because you're using the washroom before you got on?
Hey, I wanted to be prepared, bud. Those little Dash 8s, they have really tiny bathrooms. And I can't imagine the Blackwater tank's much bigger. So I go pick up my sister's friend. She lives downtown, and we're driving back home. And I hit Ogdensburg, and I start smelling burnt toast. And I'm like, either something's wrong with my car, or I'm about to have a seizure, one of the two. So either
way, this is going to get awesome.
Yeah, so I let it go. We pull into Napanee to fill it with gas. I'm like, I'll take a look. So pop the hood. So just rewinding a couple months, the missus and I went camping back in July, and we had a raccoon get into our food box and stole our bag of bagels. I thought nothing of it. I'm like, bagels are gone. You know, raccoons took care of them. Apparently, a squirrel found one of the bagels and decided he was going to be prudent and save that puppy for winter. Hides it up in my engine compartment of my SUV underneath my air intercooler for my turbocharger and my exhaust manifold. So I pop the hood, and there's smoke coming out of everywhere. I've got a perfectly charred bagel sitting on top of my exhaust manifold, which was basically just the start of the nightmare of the trip home.
Kind of bagel was it?
Yeah,
It was,
I'm just like, 'cause if
it
it's
was a
burnt-
cinnamon raisin, right?
I'll eat that thing as black as it can come.
Well, the
man.
running joke on the way home was every time I smelt it, I'm just like, does anybody have any cream cheese? Because there's no way I was sticking my hand in there to get it out at that point.
Gotta
'cause
get some locks.
some blocks and maybe some capers. Yeah.
Some capers.
I heard lox and capers on cinnamon raisin bagels pretty offside, to be honest. Especially one that's been rammed up your engine for 2 months.
It's definitely not kosher, that's for sure.
So I want to give a quick shout out to RB Booster Club. Kind of last call for their bus trip to Hamilton. There's 2 spots available. If anyone wants to go, the deadline's going to be tomorrow night, which would be Wednesday night. So there's 2 spots left on the bus. It's $165 for your ticket in the bus, and then you got to get your own accommodation. But I know there are 2 spots available, and if you are interested, contact Lordell or Jesse. But I guess the easiest way to do it would just be lordell@gmail.com, and you can contact him or see him on the Booster Club Facebook page or Twitter account. So They're doing well. They only got two spots left, so hopefully he can fill up that bus. And moving forward, we keep doing these kind of things. It's pretty awesome. So, okay, so I know I already gave him props, but thanks, Johnny, for filling in for Mark last week. He did a great job. It was fun being at home, and I mean, Mark, you have to listen to the show, obviously, eventually, now that you're back in Ontario.
Yeah, now that my time zones have recalibrated.
But there were some funny, it's not too often I leave mid-show because the curry's burning,
And it's not very often I get ripped on a radio show when I'm not there to listen to it live when it's being recorded. So
you're ripped on whether you're here or not.
Well, I realize, but it's always a surprise when I'm not here.
There's not a water tank I don't walk by without taking a picture and sending it to Colin. Inside joke.
Big birthday coming up.
Yeah, super fan, and I mean like the littlest, tiniest super fan we have. I don't even know how old he's going to be, but Matt is a great fan of ours, of the podcast. He's a great Our Nation member, and his son Charlie's got a birthday coming up. And Matt Skinner, I'd say, is like an OSEG super fan because he's so happy that TD Place is back, and it's an entertainment spot for him and his son. Matt's awesome. Matt and I have grown to be good friends, and I hope to get to know Matt a little more and hang out with him. He's such a great dude.
Just a really nice, engaging, and like really smart, like socially aware and politically aware man. And it's refreshing to be able to have a high level conversation with someone like that at a football game, or talk about like the Misfits.
Talking about early punk.
So it's pretty cool. I haven't got to know him too well either, but definitely a good dude for sure.
And his son Charlie's got a birthday coming up, and if you're listening to this show and you're a member of Our Nation that's listened to this show for a while, or been to a booster club night, or whatever the case may be, you probably know Charlie. So happy birthday, Charlie. That's coming up. We don't quite know when his birthday is. We just know it's coming. We don't look after specifics here on the show. But happy birthday, Charlie, and we'll see you on Friday.
The good thing is, like a young kid, even if it's not his birthday and you give him a cupcake with a candle in it, he's going to be stoked, right? So
obviously.
Basically, can't go wrong.
He was wearing a Shazam suit last time we saw him, which was amazing. He dresses amazing.
I think that bouncy castle they have at the game is just for him. Because that kid, he's got lots of energy, and I love watching him just go nuts. It's cool. I mean, we don't own our own kids, so it's kind of fun to see other people that own their own kids.
We're in the market to buy some if anybody has any for sale, though.
Speak for yourself.
Knock on wood, I don't have any kids. Rugby Ontario, I want to thank Andrea for giving us a heads up that this Friday, including the game here coming up, is a Rugby Ontario game that's being partnered with the Ottawa RedBlacks. So what Rugby Ontario has done is announced a strategic partnership that allows them to offer exclusive tickets to the CFL to members of the Ontario rugby community and anybody else. And basically the offer is available in 3 price points, 34, 48, and 61 for select RedBlacks home games at TD Place. Basically $7.50 from each ticket sold goes to Rugby Ontario, and rugby's constantly growing. And of course, I've learned more about rugby in the last 3 months from Andrea than anybody else I know. So good for Andrea for sticking to this. When placing your order for tickets, mention Rugby Ontario to be included in this program. So reserve some tickets, and please contact Ferran Mereza by phone at 613-232-6767 or email atfmirza@oseg.ca. Get yourself some rugby tickets for Friday. If you don't already have them, they're discounted.
And what really impressed me with this whole rugby thing is Andrea left it for quite some time and just recently got reintroduced to it again. And that's got to be really tough, Like we all played competitive sports as a kid, and to leave it and come back takes a lot of dedication. I just says a lot about her. I think it's awesome because later in life with careers and just being, having responsibilities, it's tough to rededicate yourself to something like that.
And out of shape. I start ball hockey next week, so I'm going to have my pre-heart attack sometime Thursday or Friday to get the heart attack out of the way before I make it onto the floor on Tuesday
It's
night.
not at a nice surface, hopefully.
No.
Those are the worst. When they first take the ice out and you think you're going to go play ball hockey at your local rink, plus 38 degrees Celsius in the barn and sucking wind.
Yeah, I've been in some of those ball hockey leagues before. So we got a game recap coming up where we got to talk about an awesome time we had at TD Place.
It was a week ago, so we may expedite it a little bit, but we'll see.
We're going to talk about more about the game experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's roll into little Santino action. So this week, Santino is, I guess I'd sum it up by saying he's talking about fans.
Seems to be a theme.
Yeah. Mark raises his hands in frustration. We gotta have her. I mean,
we don't have to edit that. It's fine.
That's cool.
They say it on Family Guy.
It's proper. It's the name.
Guy. Is that our new standard of professionalism?
Okay. All right. Well, looks like this family-friendly show just went. I don't know what
Seth MacFarlane on you here.
That's okay.
I like it.
Okay, so he's talking about fans who may not be as educated as we would like or as one would like, and we've been pumping that for the last year and a half about the importance of educating these new fans to understand the dynamic.
I think one of them was on my flight back from Vancouver.
Too soon.
Too soon, Bob.
Hopefully that woman doesn't listen to the podcast. Oh man, this might be the end of it. Anyways, so Santino's going to talk about fans, and Janine is just doing her Turkey Day around the CFL. So I can't wait to hear that, and let's get into it. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Bleed Red Blacks podcast. Check us out on Twitter at BleedRedBlacks and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bleed Red Blacks podcast.
Live from Brazil, here's the Red Black Renegade rant with Santino Filoso.
Are you ready?
Do you really mean to tell me that a 5'0" wide receiver is worth $40,000 more than Chad Owens?
We'll do it live.
If the helmets weren't ready this week, they should have pushed their introduction back.
It has begun.
Don't be a shitty fan. Sounds like a pretty easy thing to do, right? In the 2 years since Ottawa's CFL team has returned, TD Place has quickly developed a well-earned reputation as a loud madhouse that truly does give the Red Blacks a home field advantage. A lot of things go into that reputation, but mostly it starts and ends with the fans. Our nation is a passionate group, and losing 2 teams has done nothing to diminish that fire. If anything, our nation is making up for lost time, screaming loud and proud during every home game. Though there are a number of older fans who were around in the Rough Rider and Renegade eras, OSEG has done a fantastic job attracting a whole new generation of fans and bringing them out to games. The problem with some of those new fans, though, is that they aren't exactly what you would call football savvy. For example, it's pretty basic that part of home field advantage is being quiet when the home team is on offense, as it allows the quarterback to draw opposing teams offside and easily audible the play. On defense, it means standing on your feet and making noise, either with your throat, hands, drum, or cowbell. If you go to games at TD Place and follow those 2 basic principles, then congratulations, because this rant isn't aimed at you. But if you happen to be one of those who complain when people in the row in front of you stand up and cheer on defense, then I'm definitely talking to you. Live sports is not the same as watching on TV. Many in Ottawa are used to going to games out at the library that is often called the Canadian Tire Centre, but football is different. When you purchase a ticket to a football game, you are agreeing that you aren't going to be just a passive observer, but rather that you will do your part to help the team win, which means cheering loud to disrupt and distract the other team. Cowbells are a great way to make the stadium loud, and really, pretty much everything in life needs more cowbell. The exception to that, of course, is when the Red Blacks offense is on the field. Then, nobody needs any cowbell. Another thing that creates an awesome atmosphere at TD Place are flags. Homemade or store-bought, if you've got it, wave it. That last sentence comes with a caveat, actually. Don't wave it during play. It's one thing to enjoy yourself and want to get on TV or pump up your section, but it's it's another to block the view of those around you who paid an equal or higher amount than you to also be there and enjoy the game. I know a lot of what I've said so far seems like very simple common sense, but apparently that common sense is lacking because at Ottawa's last home game, numerous fans complained they were told by security to sit down, be quiet, or to stop waving their flags. This might have been due to a high number of first-timers out on a discounted ticket for a bonus home game. Perhaps it could have been because people really were in the wrong, or maybe it was due to overzealous security guards. After the game, the Red Blacks clarified their stadium policies online, both via their Twitter account and via a message from team president Jeff Hunt, who posted in the Our Nation Facebook group. Here's the key phrase from his post. Quote, bang the cowbells on defense after big plays and touchdowns, but not throughout the entire game. It can get a bit annoying after a while. Same with flag waving. Try and do it during stoppages in play and not during a play, as it affects other fans' view of the game. It's just about respecting other people who also want to enjoy the game. End quote. Talk about an overload of common sense. Sounds incredibly easy, right? Perhaps one way to avoid issues in the future is to have the Red Blacks run an educational fan video on the big screen before every home game, emphasizing that cowbells and standing on defense are acceptable and that flag waving is good between plays. Another simple step would be to remind security, either in a training course or before every home game, that fans standing, cheering, and waving flags is okay, depending on when it's done. So they should assess the situation before simply telling a loud fan to sit down and be quiet because they received a complaint. All in all, guys, everyone wants to have fun, and everyone in our nation should want to do their part to keep up the reputation that TD Place has quickly developed. It's live sports after all. It's gonna be noisy. If you don't like that, stay home. But if you've already made the trip out to the stadium, then please just use some common sense and don't be a shitty fan. That's all for this week, guys. Make sure to rant back at Red Black Gade, and remember to bleed Red Blacks.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Bleed Red Blacks podcast. Check us out at bleedredblacks.ca for blogs, photos, and podcast archives.
Dude, isn't she a Bombers fan?
Let me laugh even harder.
But for the love of God, please start hook sliding.
Dude, whatever. She's an Ottawa fan too.
Did Buck Pierce's constant injuries not teach you guys anything?
Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Enough ranting, on to the games.
Really? Righteous. Welcome to Around the CFL with Jin on the Bleed Red Blacks podcast.
CFL fans were treated to 5 matchups instead of 4 in Week 16, starting with a rare Tuesday night game between the Argos and the Red Blacks. The boys are going to walk you through that heartbreaker, so let's skip ahead to Game 2 of Week 16 between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Hamilton Tiger Cats on Friday night. The Ticats were coming off a 2-game losing streak with Jeff Matthews getting his second start at quarterback. The Riders had to win this game in order to keep a sliver of a fragment of a playoff hope alive, and so they went with veteran Kevin Glenn under center. Matthews must take exception to all the chatter about the Ticats needing to bring in Kevin Glenn if they want to make it to the Grey Cup, because he had a hell of a game. He threw for 22 of 33, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Glenn, meanwhile, was only able to generate 67 yards of offense in the first half and an interception. His team was down 20-0. He was pulled in favor of Brett Smith in the second half. Many of us believe that Smith should have had the start in this game and a few others, and so there was some excitement to see him get in there. Unfortunately, he didn't showcase his best work until it was way too late in the game, ultimately finishing 11 of 20, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. The Tiger Cats took this one pretty easily with a final score of 30-15 without Zach Collaros. Now let's bear in mind that they did play the spotty defense of the inconsistent Saskatchewan Roughriders, but they look good, showing that they intend to make it back to the Grey Cup for the 3rd year in a row. With the trade deadline coming up on Wednesday, you have to think it's Matthews that they're going to ride all the way there. The Battle of Alberta rubber match kicked off doubleheader action on Saturday night in Calgary, with the Stamps and Esks vying for top spot in the West. If you are a fan of defensive matchups, then this was the game for you, as 2 of the best defenses in the league squared off against each other in a very low-scoring affair. Most of that scoring came in the second quarter. Edmonton's offense was able to get the major after Calgary turned the ball over on a beauty 33-yard pass from Mike Riley right into the hands of Kenny Stafford in the end zone. The Stamps answered back immediately with a touchdown from Bo Levi Mitchell to league all-star Eric Rogers. But from that point on, both offenses went to sleep. Both quarterbacks finished with under 300 yards passing. Both threw a touchdown and both threw 2 interceptions. Riley went 29 of 40, 264 yards, and Mitchell had a pretty average outing of 17 of 32 for 230 yards. Calgary looked to be rallying late in the fourth quarter, but with just over 2 minutes left, Kauchi Mwamba intercepted Mitchell, ending the drive and helping conserve Edmonton's 15-11 victory. Edmonton is clearly looking to start a new streak of winning against the Calgary Stampeders after finally breaking their 12-game losing streak earlier this year. What a rivalry. Next up, Winnipeg at the BC Lions. These two teams are battling it out hard against one another and against Montreal for that third place spot in the West. Travis Lulay was dressed for the Lions, but Jonathan Jennings got the start. This was a good call because that kid generates some offense. Despite being picked off twice, he threw 24 of 31, 372 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 of which went to Manny Arsenault, who has really picked up his own game. BC's offense had the team up 23-9 at the half. Winnipeg's offense, on the other hand, was sputtering. Nichols had a Nichols-esque game, going 19 of 34 for 179 yards. At least he was able to engineer a late game drive for a touchdown, but aside from that, he looked slow and frankly really tired. Good thing the Winnipeg defense did not give up from start to finish in this game because they gave the Bombers a chance. But the real star was special teams. Remember that Winnipeg fired their special teams coach and Mike O'Shea has since been in charge, and boy did he show it that night. Gutsy calls were made all around, including 2 direct snaps on 3rd and 2 to Pontbriand and 3rd and 10 to Briggs to keep Bomber drives alive. Winnipeg blocked a 1-point convert attempt and a punt, the latter leading to a touchdown, and Sergio Castillo, a 25-year-old kicker out of La Jolla, Texas, took center stage in this game, going 5 for 5 on field goals from 13, 32, 36, 29, and 40 yards out. I admit it, I was expecting Haverlahu to get the nod as kicker in this one, because O'Shea is the kind of guy who likes to send a message to his players by showing confidence in their abilities, even if they falter. This game, though, he was sending a much tougher message, and along with his gutsy special team calls, it made the difference. Winnipeg came back from behind to take this game 29-26, fittingly on a field goal in the dying seconds. Als fans were treated to a beautiful day for a Thanksgiving Classic against the Toronto Argonauts on Monday afternoon, and this was a dogfight until the end. Montreal's defense was back on track, perhaps bolstered a little by the signing of free agent Enoch Mwamba. As a unit, this defense succeeded in throwing Trevor Harris off of his game, at least for the first 3 quarters. Despite a first drive touchdown, the Argos were not able to get anything going until the fourth quarter, when they added 2 touchdowns helped by back-to-back Montreal turnovers. More on that in a minute. Harris finished the game 16 of 21, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Brendan Whitaker, who was released by the Owls at the beginning of the season, added a late-game rushing touchdown to go up 25-10 with a little over 3 minutes left. That's when things got interesting, but let's back up for a quick second. Rakeem Cato started for the Owls, and while he didn't exactly have the offense firing, he had a steady game in the first half, 9 of 12, 72 yards, but he was steamrolled on a sack by Thomas Miles late in the second quarter and left the game with an upper body injury, which we have since found out that it is a concussion. Anthony Boone came in, did nothing to get the offense going, and so the Owls turned to Tanner Marsh in the fourth quarter. On his first drive, he fumbled the ball and turned it over to Montreal. On his second drive, he was intercepted. This is how Toronto opened up a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter. But when the chips were down, Marsh gave the Owls fans hope, marching downfield for a touchdown to BJ Cunningham. With a minute left on the clock and down by 8, we were treated to a successful onside kick, my favorite play in football, with Kyrie Seber knocking the ball out of bounds and Montreal taking possession. Marsh again marched the team all the way downfield, but on the last play of the game, Tyrell Sutton stepped out of bounds, and although Jim Pop and many of us watching insist that there were 2 seconds left on the clock, the command center disagreed. The game ended about 15 yards shy of the end zone, and Toronto takes this one 25-17. Next week, Saskatchewan will have the bye. Ottawa starts a home-at-home against the Bombers in Winnipeg. Calgary comes east to take on the Argos, and as long as the Jays are still in the playoffs, this game will be held at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. BC starts a tough end-of-season schedule with a matchup in Edmonton, and the Tiger Cats will play the Owls in Montreal. With Cato out with a concussion, Crompton and Lefevre out with injury, and Boone and Marsh proving more than a little ineffective, I'm wondering if we might actually see Canadian Brandon Bridge next week, who's right now on the 1-game injury reserve. Here's hoping. Let's take a quick look at the standings. For taking the Battle of Alberta, the Edmonton Eskies are in first, followed by the Calgary Stampeders, both teams at 11-4. BC currently sits in third at 5-9, and Winnipeg is breathing down their neck in fourth at 5-10. Saskatchewan rounds out the West at 2-13. In the East, fans are in for a treat as the Tiger Cats, Argos, and Red Blacks duke it out for first. Hamilton and Toronto are both at 9-5, but the Ticats sit in first since they swept the Argos in the season series. Ottawa sits in third, just one game behind at 8-6, and Montreal is in fourth place at 5-9. The Eastern crossover is still possible, but Montreal is going to have to start playing much better ball and figure out this quarterback stuff if they want to take that third spot in the West. Well, that's it for this week's edition of Around the CFL. Remember to tweet us back with your thoughts about your league at BleedRedBlacks and at Ottawa J.
Game recap on the Bleed Red Blacks podcast.
Game recap. So last Tuesday night, we had the honor of sitting in the box seats on the south side, our first ever experience on the south side of the stadium, and it was cool, but we definitely missed our homies over in FF, and we like it under the hood up there, top shelf, you know?
I hadn't been to the south side since 92, 93 maybe, at least.
Picture still on the wall.
Pictures. Mustard stain still on the seat, bud.
Yeah. So we lost 38-35 in a real shootout. I mean, there was 12 days separated from the last time these two teams played, and in the meantime, the Red Blacks crushed the Als, and the Argos had a bye week, and it was definitely a tale of two different teams. And obviously, for those of you who listen to the show, you know that the game was slated to be played in Toronto, but because of the Blue Jays baseball schedule, it got moved to TD Place. And good on the team at OSEG for getting 15,000 butts in the seat. I thought that was just amazing. Great effort across the board in 2 or 3 weeks. Says a lot about our community and just the hard work that they're doing over there down at Lansdowne.
It was not a disappointment, despite some papers, whatever. I can't talk about this guy. You have to. I can't.
Okay. Anyways, just a local writer was very negative about the reception, negative about basically just saying our fans are terrible. It was pathetic. And I think that kind of more describes the majority of his editorials, to be honest. But I digress.
Yeah, we had a great night, though. We got to thank OSEG straight up for what an amazing evening we had.
Thank you so much to Calvin, Adrian, Mark Gowdy, and John for the awesome night. It was awesome meeting you guys. Yeah, I mean, we once again proved that this city loves its football. And it was great to meet you guys, talk some shop, talk some football, talk some business, talk about everything. And you guys are great group of dudes. And yeah, I can't wait to talk more moving forward for sure.
Yep.
Okay, so last week Mike had an incident. I guess it was 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And he had a little change fiasco.
Coffeegate
at the north side stands at our secret location that no one ever goes to. There's no lineup. It's amazing. Text me, I'll tell you where it is. And Mike got shortchanged, $2.75, and no coffee. Took it well. Patient person.
Took it. Yeah, I was hoping.
Yeah, it's all good. You are in the what's that acronym you use? Something
QSR business.
QSR business. And I took the time to read it, what that was, because you always say, and for those of you who don't know what this is, you're obviously not in the business. So I binged it.
You banged it.
So I banged it.
You dogpiled it.
So yeah. So I asked Jeeves, and okay, I know what QSR is now. So
speaking of service, yeah, it all comes down to service, right? And we have, I like to say, the greatest ticket rep in OSEG. There is other ticket reps, and they're probably just as great. But because she is our ticket rep, she's awesome. Her name is Kabina.
Being biased is fun when you have the best.
When you have the best.
Yeah.
And so she showed up to visit us in the box and brought me a nice little handwritten note with a voucher for beverage and some food. Which was awesome, and it was, just in time because I started to rake some of the Keurig coffees that were in the box just to get my $2.70 back.
And I remember I made a joke to one of the OSEG guys, we won't say who, and he said, well, actually, we've been watching you guys on the camera since you got in here. So I was like, oh, damn, trying to retrace my steps. I'm like, okay, did I do anything I probably shouldn't have? And
yeah,
I'm sure we did, but they were cool. So
you watch that and fast forward, it's just cans falling out of my hands into the garbage.
Just me stuffing meatloaf into my cargo pants.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Kabina. Amazing, and you've done everything you could do for us and helped us above and beyond.
Minus one service.
I may need a escort or a bodyguard if I keep ending up in section GG.
And another FFer wandered over.
Yeah, 2 games ago.
And it was tough. And they heard about it. So for those of you who have the tendency to wander east, be careful. Because if you wind up in GG, you may never make it out alive.
I got to give you some cred, though. Like, the spread was amazing in the what is that called? The
whatever, the club section or something?
The auto club. BMW Auto Club, brought to you by Apple Auto Glass. No, anyways, but the food and spread was amazing. You actually got in line, got food to be in line for more food. So you cleared a plate.
Correct.
While waiting to get another plate, which was amazing. Well, I stood there
confirmed.
Where I'm like, I'm really hungry right now, man.
I'm like, man, these roasted potatoes are delicious, but I'm not sure if the rosemary's fresh.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm like, I just want to build my own hot dog and slider already.
But you saw me. Nothing went to waste, and I made sure my first plate was done before I started my second.
From Winchester, bud. Clean the plate. Bud.
That's how we do it. Yeah. So, good times. I mean, it was a good spread. From carrot soup to hot dog bar. That's a pretty big. A wide spectrum.
It smacks all the demographics right in the face. You know what I mean?
Basically, yeah.
But wait, you don't want a hot dog? There's carrot soup over there.
Yeah.
Right, where's the gazpacho? Come on. So
let's talk a little football.
And a little demi-glaze on the hot dog, by the way. Just kidding.
I don't know what that was.
Let's talk about Hank.
So Hank was coming off, a CFL record-setting performance last week against Montreal, and he was pretty special. And anyone that watched it know what I'm talking about. Anyone who hasn't watched it, I recommend you go rewatch that game. Like, what he did was unbelievable. So Hank, once again, he had a good game: 27 for 35, 250 yards passing, 2 TDs and 1 interception. And for most weeks that would be great, but for the first time in a while, it wasn't our quarterback who was the star of the game.
No, Trevor Harris. He rolls in there, 32 for 44. He drops 397 yards on us, 5 TDs. Yeah, read that again. 5 TDs. No kidding. He just marched that team down the field, and of course he did it with the final minute of the game, leaving Chad Owens with an amazing catch, which ends up being the catch probably of one of the catches of the year. Be on every highlight reel near the end of the season. And we'll get this out of the way now. What Hank said about that catch was just amazing, right? Like he made reference to it
right away. He said that he's very, he was very positive about it, and he said that was, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL, or talented in NFL, let alone CFL, and he proves it week in and week out. 5'8", and the guy is just a terror, and it's hard not to like him. He's very positive. He seems to be well spoken. He's never really offended anyone or ran his mouth, and I hate the boatmen with a passion, but I definitely have a soft spot for Mr. Owens.
Now, your buddy here, one of the linebackers of the night there, I got to let you drop his numbers
So
here.
Damaso Munoz had 8 tackles, and another guy that I've been pretty hot on lately, they're asking a lot of this young kid, but David Hines, he also came to play. So the 2 boys had 15 tackles between the 2 of them, and you've mentioned it many times, it's defense by committee. Last year, Jasper was kind of a one-man show out there, and this year we're really, really working as a team and learning how to stop, well, not so much that game in particular, but over the course of a season, stop oppositions using a good team concept.
Yeah, Jasper who?
Yeah.
But no, let's move on to Abdullah Kene here and just have a little chat about where he is this year mentally on the field and what he's doing and maybe how he's getting exposed.
So he continues to be targeted by the opposition's best receivers. He is holding his own, but like Gavin's last year, sometimes you gotta get burnt, before you really learn. And we've talked about this a bunch of times that Abdul's best strength is his speed,
closing speed sometimes.
Yeah, and I feel like he gets out of a lot of trouble because of it. But there's a particular route that you picked up on that takes advantage of his lack of field awareness or lack of head on a swivel kind of thing. He tends to get turned around.
Seems
sometimes.
To be a play that's on either side of the field that's running us a little bit sideways with touchdowns, basically, and it's a short or a long what's the word?
Post?
Post? No. Oh man, I have it in my notes. Hold on. It's like we've done this podcast twice here.
This is awesome. So,
anyways, riveting radio. Anyways, it's a flipping corner route. Okay, sorry, I'm just having one of those moments here. Corner route, not doing so well. He's not picking it up, whether it's a short corner or a deep corner. So
yeah,
something that's really got to be focused on this team.
But despite him being burned on a few plays, he was still able to contribute with one interception and another forced fumble. So we expect a lot of him moving forward. And I think he's learning to play against the best, and I think that can only be a positive, assuming he can continue to stay positive. He can continue to keep working hard and learning from these mistakes, and not start hanging his head.
We talk about the CBs being. We're going to talk about in a minute about the O-line and the defensive line being tired, but I'm sure the CBs were a little bit ragged too as well from all these 3 games in 11 days was just
it's a lot of tackles, and the hammer takes more damage than the nail, and these guys have been throwing their bodies around 3 times in 11 days, and that's got to be tough. And hopefully the schedule a little easier on them the rest of the year, and these guys can get a chance to hop in the ice bath and get their bodies back into shape before we head into the playoffs. Yeah, I said that.
Yeah, and that defense and offensive line, they looked pretty tired this week. And basically that line, we talked about watching the game. The D-line had a tough time really moving that pocket on the Argos and making any major difference there. And it just at the end of the day, that many games allowed Harris and I believe the stat is something like basically 60 to 62 plays were fired up against that defense, and that's a lot of time. I don't know, I don't have the possession time, but 60 plays against you is a long time to be out there trying to run around.
And it wasn't hard to tell which team was coming off the bye, that's for sure, right? So their big men looked fresh, and it was obvious that we were getting pushed around. So that's a tough challenge for our guys for sure. So one negative that came out of the game was one of our favorites and a fan favorite, Jeremiah Johnson is out for the year. The serious injury. Yikes. That's tough, but I guess if there was ever a time for Mr. Powell to have kind of a coming out party, Tuesday was the night.
Yeah, and boy, this guy looks great. He ran in there, 7 rushes, 49 yards. He made 7 catches for 56 yards. And guess what? 6 kick returns for 142 yards. That's 247 combined yards. So basically going back to that same idea, the way the workhorse or the workload we put on JJ needs to be in the hands of Mr. Powell. 15 times minimum. That's your number. You love that minimum, 15 times a game. And get him running. And you're curious to see what the young Canadian kid, LaFrance, if he gets a chance on some touches as well. So
yeah, I'd like to see him get a shot, but we'll see. You never know, and I don't think it's hard. Who knows what your reaction is going to be when a guy like Jeremiah goes down? He's not only a leader on the field, but he's proven to be one in the dressing room as well, and his personality is pretty amazing, and he's going to be missed for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the 10 or 11 Rolling Rock I had, but definitely Powell looked a lot like JJ out there with his running style. So it was like it's a seamless transition. Basically, we're looking at a player that runs basically the same type of running game that JJ composed as a professional.
And you and I have been preaching this for however many episodes now, is we've needed a good north-south guy. And I think we've replaced one good north-south guy with almost a more dynamic north-south guy.
Yeah.
Like I think Powell's got a little more shake and bake in him.
And I think we're going to be talking about that a week from today. I think so. I hope so.
I hope. Yeah, I hope he really has just continues an awesome game. And if he can get anywhere close to 250 combined yards against the Peg, I mean, I think we're laughing.
Brilliant. You talk about Chris Williams here. I like your take on this, and let's bring it to the listeners.
So I'm just wondering, why does he look so timid while returning kicks? He looks like he's almost preparing himself for a hit before the hit comes. He's not giving himself a chance to let the play develop and just play naturally. And he has proven now, and Mike and I have talked about this extensively, to be an elite receiver. And I don't think he's ever been able to hang his hat on that in years past. He's always been an elite special teams guy who can play receiver. But I mean, the timing routes between him and Henry are the best on the team. And I would argue best in the league. Like, they can't be stopped. Those little 3, 4, 5 yard timing routes that they have just perfected. And you and I, we can see it almost now when they're going to call it.
I feel like I know it's coming. Like,
maybe you should dust off the CV and send it into Regina or something. I don't know, but
new defensive coordinator Mike. Never mind. My last name. Bleep that out.
Mike's, yeah.
No,
anyway, so I'm just wondering, like, how do we approach this moving forward? Like, is it time to let him focus on just being a wide receiver, not taking money into consideration, like assuming he just gets paid like the average Joe Blow, or I mean, one may also argue that he's only one big play away from regaining that form
you're
getting
right.
that momentum and getting like busting one, you know. So I don't know. Do we have time to find out? I don't know. Like, there's only 4 games left, and I don't know. Is he hurt? Like, I'm just all these questions, and I'm just not sure. And I'm so happy what he's doing at wide receiver and that dynamic that he's added. That if Powell can come in and adequately, I mean, he's only returning kicks so far, but if Powell can start returning punts as well, I don't know. Maybe we can really, you know, shake it up a bit. I'm just looking for answers, and so far, no one really has any.
I had a take at the beginning of the season that nobody liked, which was, you know, when we got rid of a number 15. I took a lot of heat for that because I was basically told through social media that was the answer is in Chris Williams. The answer is here. And at the end of the day, that's fine. But we had a punt returner who was basically a slot receiver who focused his game on punt returns. And yeah, he has. You compare the numbers, and maybe next game I will. For the next podcast, I'll compare those numbers. But at the end of the day, we have an average punt returner. Whether that's average punt coverage as well, that's fine.
And with who's now an all-star wide receiver.
An all-star wide receiver. So my thoughts going back to the beginning of the season was, don't you need to have a backup punt returner on that squad that can be as consistent? And that's why I felt Jamal Smith should have been kept around, but that was just my, you know, because he was a favorite player of mine, so I was looking for any excuse to keep him.
I wonder if he can punt.
I wonder if he can punt. We'll find out. Maybe
hey, Mark, you got a rim shot you can throw in there, bud? I think Deb just took a drink, to be honest.
So let's get to special teams, because the mayor's gone again.
And
in all irony, and if you're the hipster kids that like your irony,
dust off your Ninja Turtles t-shirt and listen to this one.
Listen to this one. Anthony Alex is backflipped his way into a job with the Argos again.
Right through the roof of the Rogers Center. Amazing.
When he had the GoPro on and everything.
Yeah.
That's so nice. But
I'm sure CFL.ca picked it up.
Yes. But you know, that's it with this the CFL, and we're going to talk about we're coming up against a team this week on Friday night that has their own special teams problems. So we'll get into that a little bit later in the game preview. But
for those parents out there, you know, may not be a bad idea to teach your young lad or your young gal to learn how to kick some hand egg. You know, might be able to pay the bills. So it was good. Anyways, like good on OSEG. One more thank you for them for what a great evening that we had, and all the special people we met through that. It was great to have a game on a Tuesday night. It was very interesting. I felt out of place the whole week. My whole week was a write-off. I had a hockey draft on Thursday night. So, and I think you and I, it was the longest we'd ever gone without communicating.
Yeah, I didn't text you for like 5 days.
I know, and I didn't know what was going on.
I thought we were broken up.
And I was like, did he find out about that thing that I did that I hope he wouldn't find out about?
Oh, I know. I knew about that. Mish told me.
Oh, damn it. No secrets around here. So lastly, I just want to say that we lost a hard-fought game, and we lost on a play that will probably be on every highlight reel for the rest of the season and for many seasons to come. So it was a fun game, a fun night, and one thing it did do was really prove just how amazing this football community is. And don't worry what people are saying. We know the truth, and for those of you who are dedicated and hardcore to this family, you know the truth. So don't worry about those silly articles.
So thanks for listening. Check us out at www.bleedredblacks.ca. I did that for fun. And yeah, visit us at BleedRedBlacks.ca in order to check us out and keep up to date, because our game preview is coming out this week. We actually have a game preview. It should be coming out Thursday.
Sounds awesome.
So
thanks for joining us, and party on.
Thank you for listening to this week's installment of the Bleed Red Blacks podcast. All musical content used in this podcast is all local Ottawa talent. If you are a local artist wanting to get your material heard on Bleed Red Blacks, send us a message on our Facebook group. Tune in next time, and remember to bleed red black.